The Galactic Biological Assessment Committee's headquarters hummed with the usual bureaucratic inefficiency that seemed to plague every corner of the galaxy. In Conference Room 7 Delta, a collection of beings from 17 different worlds sat around a crescent-shaped table, reviewing what had to be the most amusing application they'd received in centuries. Order, order. Wheeze Counselor Vex, a gelatinous blob from Kepler 442b, whose species had evolved past the need for skeletal structure, but apparently not past the need for excessive paperwork. We're here to review application 4471 Terra regarding the reclassification of Earth's fauna from harmless curiosities to potentially dangerous wildlife. A ripple of barely contained laughter spread through the chamber. Zekthar, whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights, clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his people. Dangerous? Have you seen their submissions? They're requesting hazard warnings for something called a house cat. Oh, this gets better. Chimed in Flux, a crystalline being whose body chimed like wind bells when she moved. She projected a holographic image into the center of the room. Look at this creature. They call it Goose. They claim it's aggressive enough to warrant interspecies incident protocols. The assembled committee burst into what could generously be called laughter, though it sounded more like a malfunctioning universal translator having a nervous breakdown. The tentacle one from Proxima Centauri begurgled something that roughly translated to adorable water bird, while a hive mind representative from Wolf 359 vibrated in collective mirth. Wait, gasped Yorick, a purple humanoid whose species had conquered 3 star systems through sheer military might. There's more. They've listed something called a chihuahua as a potential security threat. The hologram shifted to show a tiny, trembling dog with bulging eyes. It weighs less than most of our lunch. Counselor Vex's gelatinous form jiggled with what passed for administrative glee. Humans. They conquered their own planet, developed faster than light travel, and somehow convinced themselves that these pets are dangerous. No wonder they were so easy to integrate into galactic society. They're afraid of everything. The laughter died down, professional snickering, as Vex shuffled through more paperwork with pseudopods that had evolved specifically for bureaucratic tasks. Shall we vote to dismiss this application and move on to lunch? I hear the cafeteria is serving those delightful plasma worms from Vega Prime. Seconded. Called out half a committee in unison, already mentally moving on to more important matters like expense reports and interdimensional parking violations. The chamber's main door hissed open with bureaucratic authority, interrupting the committee's premature celebration. A human woman in a crisp xenobiology uniform strode in, her face bearing the expression of someone who'd spent 3 months navigating galactic red tape only to arrive at this moment. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the alien chatter with surprising authority. "I'm Dr. Chen, Earth's xenobiological representative. I believe you're discussing my application." Counselor Vex's gelatinous form rippled with what might have been embarrassment if his species were capable of such emotions. "Ah, yes. Well, we were just concluding our review. Quite thorough, really. Your animals are charming." Charming. Dr. Chen's eyebrows shot up. "Did you actually read the behavioral analyses? The ecological impact studies? These animals have shaped human civilization for millennia. They're not pets. They're partners in one of the most successful evolutionary collaborations in our galaxy." Zekthar's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Human, your house cat. Weighs 3 kilograms and sleeps 18 hours a day. My species' war beasts level mountains. Your war beasts are genetically engineered weapons." Dr. Chen shot back. "These animals evolved naturally to fill complex ecological niches. They survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions that would eliminate most species represented in this room." A wave of condescending alien laughter rippled through the chamber. Flux chimed mockingly. Impressive survival instincts, perhaps, but hardly dangerous to a spacefaring civilization. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. "You want proof? Fine. I formally request a live demonstration hearing under Galactic Code 7 Alpha. Let me show you what you're actually dealing with." The laughter stopped abruptly. Yorick leaned forward, purple features stretching into what passed for a grin among his people. "You want to bring your pets here? To demonstrate their supposed danger. I accept your challenge, Dr. Chen replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was proposing. Prepare your facilities. You're about to get an education. 3 standard galactic days later, Conference Room 7 Delta had been converted into something resembling a cross between a research laboratory and a nature preserve. Dr. Chen stood beside a series of reinforced enclosures while committee members filed in, their attitudes ranging from amused curiosity to outright skepticism. Let's begin with intelligence, Dr. Chen announced, activating a transparent barrier around a large aquatic tank. Inside, a common octopus named Einstein stretched its arms across the bottom. This is a standard puzzle box that would challenge most sentient species. She lowered a complex mechanical contraption into the tank cube with multiple locks, switches, and rotating sections that needed to be manipulated in precise sequence to open. The committee watched with mild interest as Einstein approached the device. Within 30 seconds, the octopus had identified the sequence. Its 8 arms worked independently, manipulating different sections while its body color shifted through patterns that seemed almost like deep concentration. In under 3 minutes, the box clicked open, revealing the fish inside. Flux chimed uncertainly. That's actually quite remarkable problem-solving capability. Elementary pattern recognition. Zekdar dismissed, though his mandibles had stopped clicking with amusement. What's next? Dr. Chen activated a second enclosure containing a border collie and a dozen small, robotic sheep analogs. Herd management and strategic thinking. She pressed a button, and the robots began moving in random directions across the enclosure. The dog immediately assessed the situation, then began a complex dance of positioning, body language, and calculated movement that corralled the wandering robots into a tight group within minutes. But it wasn't just the efficiency that impressed the aliens. It was a clear evidence of planning, prediction, and adaptation as the dog adjusted its strategy for each robot's individual behavior patterns. It's reading movement algorithms, breathed the Tentacle One, gurgling with what might have been surprise. Multiple simultaneous calculations. Still just instinct, Yorick protested, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Dr. Chen smiled grimly and activated the third demonstration. A dolphin surfaced in a larger pool, clicking and whistling in what sounded like random noise. But as the acoustic visualization screens lit up around the room, the aliens could see exactly what was happening. The dolphin was using echolocation to map not just the pool, but the entire room, including the committee members themselves. The dolphin then proceeded to solve a 3-dimensional maze suspended underwater, navigating purely through sound and demonstrating problem-solving skills that required spatial reasoning, memory, and planning. Counselor Vex's gelatinous form had stopped jiggling entirely. These cognitive capabilities are unexpected, and we haven't even gotten to the interesting ones yet, Dr. Chen replied, watching as several committee members began taking actual notes for the first time. Dr. Chen's expression grew more serious as she moved to the next set of enclosures. Intelligence is just one aspect of Earth's fauna. Now, let's discuss physical capabilities. She gestured to a massive reinforced habitat that hadn't been there during the previous demonstrations. May I present a North American grizzly bear? The creature that emerged from the shadows was nothing like the harmless curiosities the committee had been mocking. Standing nearly 3 meters tall on its hind legs, the bear was a monument to evolutionary perfection, muscle, claw, and predatory focus wrapped in a deceptively furry package. Standard strength test, Dr. Chen announced, lowering a titanium alloy stress beam into the enclosure. The same material used in starship hulls, rated for pressures that would crush most organic matter. Bear, if you would. The grizzly approached the beam with casual interest, gripped it in massive paws, and bent it into a pretzel. Yorick's purple skin had gone noticeably pale. What's the measured force output? Approximately 4,000 pounds per square inch grip strength, Dr. Chen replied matter-of-factly. That's enough to crush the exoskeleton of most species in this room. Zekdar's mandibles had stopped clicking entirely. He was now furiously scribbling notes on a quantum tablet, his dismissive attitude evaporating like atmosphere through a hull breach. Perhaps that's an anomaly, wheezed Counselor Vex, though his bureaucratic confidence was wavering. One exceptional specimen doesn't represent. Oh, that's not exceptional, Dr. Chen interrupted, activating another enclosure. This is... The saltwater crocodile that glided into view looked like something from the committee's collective nightmares, 5 meters of armored death that had remained essentially unchanged for 200 million years. Not because it couldn't evolve, but because it had achieved perfection and saw no need to improve. Dr. Chen lowered a bite force measurement device into the water, standard galactic protocol for measuring jaw pressure. The crocodile's response was swift and terrifying, explosive lunge that would have been invisible if not for the high-speed cameras. The measurement device registered the bite and immediately flashed a warning signal. 16,000 pounds per square inch, Dr. Chen read from the display. That's enough bite force to snap the support beams of most spacecraft. The tentacle one had gone completely silent, its usually animated appendages frozen in what looked like existential horror. Flux's crystalline body was chiming in frequencies that roughly translated to, "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear." Surely these are your apex predators, Vex managed, his gelatinous form visibly shrinking. Your most dangerous specimens. Dr. Chen smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. Actually, these hunt in Earth's oceans. She activated the largest enclosure, revealing a great white shark circling in manufactured seawater. 40 million years of perfected killing. Watch how it hunts. She released a mechanical target that moved with the swimming patterns of a seal. The shark's response was poetry written in violence, a perfect calculation of trajectory, speed, and timing that resulted in the target being obliterated in a single, devastating strike. The efficiency was absolute. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no mercy. Speed, 40 miles per hour from a standing start. Bite force, 4,000 pounds per square inch. Sensory capabilities. Can detect a single drop of blood in 25 gallons of water from a mile away. And unlike your war beasts, she looked directly at Zekdar, this is completely natural selection. The committee sat in stunned silence. Half of them were now taking frantic notes, while the other half appeared to be having species-wide existential crises. Yorick was quietly inputting data into what looked suspiciously like a military threat assessment database. And these creatures, Dr. Chen continued, her voice dropping to an ominous calm, share a planet with humans. Every day, we swim in their oceans, hike through their forests, and somehow manage to not just survive, but thrive. She paused, letting that sink in. Would you like to know what we consider truly dangerous? Dr. Chen moved to the smallest enclosure in the room, barely larger than a standard shipping container. Inside, what appeared to be a moderately sized black and white striped creature was methodically destroying what looked like an enrichment toy. It was perhaps a third the size of the grizzly bear, with none of the crocodile's obvious armor or the shark's streamlined menace. The committee's tension broke like a snapping cable. Yorick burst into laughter so violent his purple skin cycled through several shades. That's your ultimate predator? It looks like a malfunctioned cleaning drone. Zekdar's mandibles resumed their clicking with renewed vigor. Human, I've seen more intimidating breakfast pastries. Are you certain this isn't some elaborate jest? Even Flux, who had been respectfully quiet during the previous demonstrations, chimed with crystalline laughter. It's actually rather cute. Does it purr like your house cats? Dr. Chen waited for the laughter to die down, her expression remaining deadly serious. This is a honey badger. And before you continue laughing, let me share some educational material. She activated the room's holographic display system. Computer, begin compilation. Honey badger behavioral analysis. The first video showed the honey badger in its natural habitat, facing down a pride of lions, not fleeing facing them down. The lions, despite outnumbering the badger 12-1 and outweighing it by a factor 20, eventually retreated. Interesting, Vex gurgled, his amusement fading slightly. Unusual defensive behavior. Oh, we're just getting started, Dr. Chen replied. Computer, display defensive capabilities. The next sequence showed a honey badger being bitten by a cobra, one of Earth's most venomous snakes. The badger collapsed, appeared dead for nearly 20 minutes, then casually stood up, shook itself off, and ate the snake. Temporary paralysis, not death, Dr. Chen explained to the now silent committee. Honey badgers have evolved resistance to nearly every venom on Earth. Cobra venom that would kill an elephant causes a minor inconvenience. Yorick had stopped laughing entirely. That's biologically improbable. Computer, display problem-solving capabilities. The screen showed a honey badger in captivity, systematically escaping from increasingly elaborate enclosures. It used tool sticks to reach latches, rocks to break barriers, and in one remarkable sequence, it actually constructed a ladder from objects in its enclosure to climb over a wall. They're the Houdini of the animal kingdom. Dr. Chen continued. Lock them in, they escape. Build the walls higher, they dig under. Remove the tools, they make new ones. One facility recorded 1,247 escape attempts in a single year from one individual. The tentacled one gurgled something that translated roughly to persistent little nightmare. Computer, display predatory behavior. What followed was a montage that would haunt the committee's dreams for cycles to come. Honey badgers attacking animals 5 times their size. Honey badgers digging through concrete to reach food. Honey badgers climbing trees to raid eagle nests while the eagle's apex predators in their own right watched helplessly from a distance. But the footage that made Counselor Vex's gelatinous form actually recoil showed a honey badger deliberately provoking a beehive, enduring thousands of stings that would hospitalize most creatures, just to access the honey inside. It ate the bees, the larvae, and the honey while being continuously stung, showing no signs of distress. Pain tolerance beyond galactic measurement standards, Dr. Chen noted clinically. Skin thick enough to resist puncture from most weapons. Claws that can tear through metal. And here's the important part: they never give up. Ever. They don't understand retreat, surrender, or self-preservation in any context that interferes with their objectives. Zekthar's chitinous exoskeleton was clicking involuntarily, now a stress-responsive species hadn't needed in millennia. How do humans coexist with these creatures? Very carefully, Dr. Chen replied, and with healthy respect. In some regions, they're considered more dangerous than lions. Lions will leave you alone if you don't threaten them. Honey badgers will attack you for walking too close to something they want. They've been known to chase off entire packs of hyenas and then take their kills. She gestured to the honey badger, which had now completely demolished its enrichment toy and was eyeing the enclosure walls with what could only be described as professional interest. This creature represents the evolutionary endpoint of absolute determination combined with complete fearlessness. It doesn't have the size of a bear, the armor of a crocodile, or the weaponry of a shark. What it has is the psychological makeup of a creature that has never encountered a problem it couldn't solve through applied violence and persistence. The room fell silent, except for the sound of frantic note-taking and what might have been quiet whimpering from several committee members. "And you," Flux whispered, her crystalline form barely chiming, "you share a planet with these?" Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "We share a planet with millions of them. Now do you understand why we might have a different perspective on what constitutes dangerous wildlife?" As if summoned by the very discussion of its capabilities, the honey badger in question had been methodically working on what appeared to be a minor flaw in its enclosure's energy barrier, a microscopic fluctuation that would have taken most species months to detect. In the span of Dr. Chen's presentation, it had somehow fashioned a tool from the remains of its demolished toy and was now applying precise pressure to the barrier's emitter node. The containment field flickered once, then died entirely. "Oh," Dr. Chen said quietly, "that's not good." The honey badger emerged from its enclosure with the casual confidence of a creature that had never encountered a barrier it considered permanent. It immediately began surveying the room with the methodical precision of a military engineer assessing a fortification. "Containment breach," Yorick shouted, his purple skin cycling through warning colors as he lunged toward the emergency alert button. The honey badger, interpreting the sudden movement as either a threat or an interesting challenge, immediately pivoted and charged directly at him. Yorick, whose species had conquered 3 star systems through superior warfare tactics, discovered that none of those tactics had prepared him for something that approached conflict with the philosophical framework of a guided missile. He vaulted over the conference table with surprising agility, the honey badger in relentless pursuit. Security protocols activated announced the facility's AI with the calm efficiency that only artificial intelligence could maintain during organic chaos. Initiating containment measures. A series of energy barriers materialized across the room, designed to compartmentalize any escaped specimens. The honey badger paused for approximately 3 seconds to assess this new development, then began systematically testing each barrier for weaknesses. When it found a slight power fluctuation in the fourth barrier, it somehow wedged itself into the gap and began expanding the opening through what could only be described as applied stubbornness. Zekdar, reverting to his species' hive mind crisis protocols, began clicking orders in his native language while backing toward the exit. Unfortunately, honey badgers were excellent at reading body language, and his retreat behavior marked him as the next logical target. The creature abandoned its barrier project and began pursuing him with a focused intensity that had made it legendary among Earth's wildlife. It's learning the room layout. Flux chimed in panic, her crystalline body resonating at frequencies that indicated deep distress. It's mapping escape routes and identifying the weakest members of the group. The tentacle one had wrapped all of its appendages around the nearest structural support and was refusing to move, apparently hoping that absolute stillness would somehow make it invisible. This strategy might have worked with most predators, but honey badgers were not most predators, and the subtle electromagnetic field generated by its nervous system was like a beacon to the creature's enhanced senses. Counselor Vex had taken the approach of his species, attempting to become as gelatinous and non-threatening as possible by spreading himself across the floor. The honey badger approached this interesting new texture with scientific curiosity, prompting Vex to emit the bureaucratic equivalent of a shriek. Computer, activate emergency containment protocols. Dr. Chen shouted over the chaos. Emergency containment protocols ineffective. The AI replied with maddening calm. Subject has demonstrated capability to circumvent all available restraint systems. Recommend immediate evacuation of personnel. The honey badger, having apparently satisfied itself that Vex was not edible, had now turned its attention to the room's technical systems. With the focused determination that had made its species the bane of zookeepers across Earth, it began investigating the environmental controls, presumably looking for something either interesting to destroy or useful for further escape attempts. How do you stop it? Yorick gasped from his position atop a filing cabinet, having discovered that vertical height was a temporary but not permanent solution. Dr. Chen, who had remained remarkably calm throughout the chaos, reached into her equipment case and produced what looked like a small sealed container. You don't stop a honey badger. You redirect it. She opened the container, releasing the scent of concentrated honey and larvae. The honey badger's head snapped around with laser focus, its entire attention suddenly riveted on this new, infinitely more interesting development than terrorizing alien bureaucrats. On Earth, Dr. Chen said as the honey badger began purposefully approaching the container, we've learned that the secret to coexisting with apex determination is not resistance, it's strategic cooperation. 20 minutes later, the honey badger had been successfully lured back into a reinforced containment Unit 1 that Dr. Chen had wisely brought as backup. The committee members sat in various states of psychological recovery, their earlier confidence replaced by what could generously be called existential contemplation. Counselor Vex had managed to reform his gelatinous structure into something resembling professional composure, though he kept nervously eyeing the now-secured enclosure. I believe, he wheezed slowly, we may need to reconsider our initial assessment. Yorick, still slightly purple around the edges from his encounter with interspecies terror, was frantically updating his threat assessment database. That creature demonstrated tactical awareness, adaptive problem-solving, and complete disregard for superior force. In military terms, it's essentially a biological weapon that happens to occur naturally. The implications are staggering. Flux chimed, her crystalline body still resonating with residual stress frequencies. If humans coexist with these creatures daily, what does that say about human psychological resilience? Their environmental adaptation capabilities? Zekdar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered deep contemplation. We evaluated their fauna in isolation, but we failed to consider the ecosystem context. A species that evolves alongside honey badgers, grizzly bears, and great white sharks doesn't develop the same threat assessment protocols as species from more predictable environments. The tentacle one had finally unwrapped itself from the structural support and gurgled something that roughly translated to terrifying evolutionary pressure cooker. Dr. Chen watched the committee's rapid cognitive restructuring with professional satisfaction. Every Earth animal you initially dismissed exists within the same ecosystem. That harmless house cat you laughed at? It's a descendant of apex predators that hunted in the same environment as saber-toothed tigers. Those geese? They're the modern representatives of creatures that survived a mass extinction that eliminated the dinosaurs. Vex was now furiously manipulating his quantum tablet, scrolling through the original application materials with an entirely new perspective. Your chihuahuas, these small aggressive creatures, we mocked their exhibiting behavioral patterns consistent with animals that evolved alongside megafauna predators, aren't they? Exactly, Dr. Chen nodded. What you interpreted as irrational aggression is actually sophisticated threat assessment, a species that learned to survive by being preemptively aggressive toward anything larger than themselves. The committee exchanged glances that conveyed volumes about their rapid reevaluation of human civilization. Yorick broke the silence. If humans developed alongside these creatures, that suggests their own threat assessment, conflict resolution, and survival capabilities are considerably more sophisticated than your initial classification indicated, Dr. Chen finished. We don't just share a planet with dangerous wildlife. We've spent millions of years learning to outthink, outplan, and occasionally outrun some of the most determined creatures natural selection has ever produced. The bureaucratic machinery of the Galactic Assessment Committee began grinding into reverse gear as multiple species simultaneously reached the same uncomfortable conclusion. They had drastically underestimated humanity. 6 standard galactic hours later, Conference Room 7 Delta resembled nothing so much as a crisis management center. Emergency reclassification protocols were in full swing, with committee members working frantically to revise decades of assessment data. Motion to upgrade Earth's fauna classification from harmless curiosities to high-priority ecological hazards. Counselor Vex announced, his gelatinous form still trembling slightly from residual honey badger trauma. All in favor? The vote was unanimous and immediate. Yorick looked up from his military database with the expression of someone who had discovered their defensive strategies were fundamentally inadequate. Dr. Chen, we're going to need comprehensive files on every Earth species. Every single one. My government is particularly interested in your complete threat assessment protocols and behavioral management techniques, Zekdar added, his mandibles clicking nervously. If humans have developed systematic approaches to coexisting with honey badgers, that knowledge represents a strategic resource of incalculable value. Flux chimed with what might have been entrepreneurial excitement. My trade federation is prepared to offer substantial compensation for consultation services. We have several frontier worlds where the local fauna has proven challenging to colonize alongside. Dr. Chen smiled, recognizing the irony. So you're asking humans to help you deal with dangerous wildlife. Your species clearly possesses survival and adaptation capabilities that we fail to recognize. The tentacled one gurgled diplomatically. What we initially dismissed as primitive caution, we now understand to be sophisticated environmental awareness developed through millions of years of evolutionary pressure. The committee's transformation was complete. Where hours earlier they had viewed humans as amusing primitives afraid of their own pets, they now saw a species forged by an environment so ruthlessly demanding that it had produced creatures like honey badgers, grizzly bears, and great white sharks, and humans had not only survived but thrived alongside them. There's something else you should probably know, Dr. Chen mentioned casually as she began packing her demonstration materials. We've domesticated some of these creatures. The house cats you laughed at? We convinced apex predators to live in our homes and purr when we pet them. The dogs? We turned pack hunters into companions who protect our children. The silence that followed this revelation was profound and slightly horrifying. You domesticated apex predators. Vex repeated slowly, as if the concept required careful processing to avoid complete cognitive overload. Among other things, Dr. Chen replied, humans don't just coexist with dangerous animals. We form partnerships with them. That's probably worth noting in your revised classifications. As she departed Conference Room 7 Delta with her securely contained honey badger, Dr. Chen reflected on the day's work. The galaxy's perspective on humanity had shifted dramatically, from overlooked newcomers to a species worthy of genuine respect and perhaps a healthy degree of caution. Behind her, the committee was already drafting formal requests for comprehensive Earth wildlife databases, environmental survival training programs, and something that sounded suspiciously like a mutual defense pact. The honey badger, secure in its transport container, had resumed its systematic destruction of enrichment toys, blissfully unaware that it had just reshaped interstellar diplomacy. Sometimes, Dr. Chen mused, the best way to earn respect in the galaxy was simply to show them what you deal with every day back home.